Hi, and welcome to Fork in the Road. I am your host, Paul Pastora, and today we're going to be talking about, is Kamala Harris a DEI hire when she was appointed by Joe Biden to be the Vice President of the United States? And we are going to be discussing basically who's right about this, because you have the Republican Party is claiming that she's a DEI hire, and the Democrat Party is saying that it is insulting and offensive, in fact, borderline racist, to even suggest that she is a DEI hire, that she's a very accredited candidate, and therefore to question that or even bring it up could be racist. So we wanted to really get a good look at that to see, well, why is it that both of these sides are saying these things, and where is the objective truth in all this? So let's go ahead and dig in a little bit, just to make it a little bit clearer for everybody, and then we're all talking on the same page. So first I wanted to discuss that the reason why people think that she's a DEI hire, again, DEI being diversity, equity, and inclusion, meaning that she's got this job because she is a minority, which DEI tends to favor that. It's sort of like affirmative action was back in the day. This is kind of the new term of affirmative action. This is the modern way of saying it. It sounds better than that, because a lot of people have strong feelings when you say the words affirmative action. But now DEI has its own category. We're in the DEI era, let's say. So is Kamala Harris a DEI candidate? And by the way, full disclosure, I am not purposely trying to say her name wrong or anything. I've seen where there are videos where people say saying her name wrong is racist. I am not trying to do that whatsoever. I have heard Joe Biden himself call her Kamala and Kamala. I don't say Kamala, I say Kamala Harris. I believe her name is Kamala Harris. If for any reason I'm wrong about that, my sincerest apologies. There's no ill intent in that. Moving forward, how this all started. So when Joe Biden was in the debates with Bernie Sanders in the primaries for the 2020 election, before that, he basically was being approached and pressured into who his vice president was going to be. Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders basically agreed on that primary that they were going to select a woman, whoever it is. There's many women who are qualified to be the president of the United States, and that they will search amongst that. Now, when Joe Biden decided to do that, there was some pressure towards Joe Biden, and there was a letter that was written to him by the Sisters Lead Sisters Vote, and it was written to Joe Biden. I actually have a copy of that right here, so let me share that with you. I believe if I go like that. So they did write a letter to Joe Biden stating how they congratulated him on being the nominee. And they do say that each of the black women who have been discussed publicly, including Leader Stacey Abrams, Congresswoman Karen Bass, Congresswoman Val Demings, Congresswoman, Senator Kamala Harris, and others, basically, that all of them are leading in the roles that they presently occupy in leadership positions. They also wanted to stress to him that basically that without the black vote, that it is black women that will put Joe Biden in the White House. Therefore, they want him to have a running mate, basically. It says here, it is a fact that the road to the White House is powered by black women, and they are key to a Democratic victory in 2020. They're the most loyal voters to the Democrat Party. Again, I'm just reading this letter. This is not my opinion. We are key to igniting black voters all across demographics that show up in record numbers. There has not been a Democratic presidential nominee in over 40 years that has won the White House without black women's leadership and vote, including President Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, and Jimmy Carter. Therefore, they are urging him to seize this historic opportunity to choose a black woman running mate who will fight for the issues that matter the most to the American people. And then it just goes on, and it is signed by all of these people. It's about 200 representatives. So Joe Biden received this letter in April of 2024. NPR covered in June 12th, which is just a couple months after, that pressure is growing on Joe Biden to pick a black woman as his running mate. Again, this is NPR. This is not me. As you can see, that is straight from them. So they talk about how in April that the 200 black leaders, they wrote this letter, and they go into more detail about basically the pressure that Joe Biden has to not just select a woman, but to select a black woman. Well, come this date right here, this is from CNN's politics website, as of August 11th, we did get this announcement.
Joe Biden has made up his mind about this decision, and there's actually an email that has gone out to supporters that said that Joe Biden has selected Kamala Harris as his running mate. There's actually an entire Biden-Harris logo at the top of this email. Now, Biden ran against Kamala Harris during the Democratic primary. They had that contentious debate moment, but ultimately, according to this email, I can read you a little bit from it. It says, folks, you make a lot of important decisions as president, but the first one is who you selected to be your vice president. I've decided that Kamala Harris is the best person to help me take this fight to Donald Trump and Mike Pence, and then to leading this nation starting in January 2021.
All right, historic news coming from Arlette. Thank you so much. Let's go straight to our panel. Dana Bash, this is history.
Actually, let's...
Dana, if you're there, we are learning from Arlette. Kamala Harris has been selected as Joe Biden's running mate, making her the first Black female vice presidential pick and first Asian female vice presidential pick. Historic.
And that is so important, to stop, take a breath, and take a moment to mark this moment. You are absolutely right to do so, Pamela, because
I'm gonna let her cook.
The third time we have seen a woman be picked by a man as running mate. It is the first time we have seen a woman of color. Mm-hmm. And it is a moment in history. It is a moment that everybody is going to remember, whether or not Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, that ticket wins or not. This is something that Vice President Biden has been obviously pressured to do, but it's also something that he has clearly looked at based on what he wants his legacy to be. Mm-hmm. Remember, he was the vice president.
I'll stop it there. I think that Dana Bash from CNN basically said it all right there and confirms a lot of what we're discussing here, which is he was pressured to do it. That's by his own party, and he did that. So when that happened, they chose Kamala Harris, who had a little bit of a history. She was the Attorney General. She was the first woman of color, since they like to speak on those terms, of California. So that was a big deal. Now, she did barely win that race. This is Wikipedia. I try not to go there, but it was definitely convenient for the statistics that, as you can see, she didn't win by a very large margin. It was 46% to 45%. She was the only Democrat on that ticket that barely won. Every Democrat in 2010 basically won. To be fair, when she ran for senator in 2016, I'll just click on the link, she did absolutely destroy Loretta Sanchez, who was another Democrat, though. So it wasn't, again, a Republican-Democrat contest, but she was the overwhelming favorite in California after her terms as Attorney General. She probably had a lot of name recognition at that time. Kamala Harris was elected to be state senator for California for, I believe it was 2 terms. And then now she's got a little bit of a credibility under her resume as to maybe she should be in the conversation for vice president. Now, I haven't been able to find landmark comments on what she's done. There's a lot to dispute there. And, technical difficulties. Let me get myself back up here. And there we go. All right. So that just goes to show you, though, how this all started, right? So Joe Biden comes out and he says, I'm going to pick Kamala Harris. As far as DEI, right? Diversity, equity, inclusion, Republicans basically were just emphasizing the point of the only reason why this is happening is because she marks some boxes, right? She's a woman. She's a woman of color. She marks off 2 minorities, which is Black or African American, but she's not African, and Asian, because she has the Indian background as well. My understanding is that she's not African. If you look at her father is Jamaican, which could mean a lot of things. Now, there is obviously African ancestry that is clearly linked to Jamaica. You can see that there are a lot of Black people in Jamaica. It's also a very diverse country, and you have people from many different skin colors and so forth. While talking about this, because I want to emphasize that really what color skin you are as a candidate is not important to me at all. I don't care if you're green or purple or yellow or brown or black or whatever. I'm of Hispanic origin. I speak fluent Spanish, and I don't need a Hispanic president to feel representative at the president level. That doesn't make sense to me. But there are a lot of people that feel like they need representation. Maybe they think that based off of the color of their skin, they can somehow relate to other people with a similar skin color. Of course, I don't know anyone that has my skin color that behaves exactly like I do. I've been told my entire life that I'm kind of a one of a kind, right? I think that was what they awarded me in the yearbook in my high school. They said, Paul, you're a one of a kind. So again, skin color doesn't mean that you're going to have things in common with other people, but the Democrat platform, as clearly you just saw in the video, it's important to them. They use this as a political tool to bring out to people. They want you to feel like, hey, we have someone that represents you. We don't have women at the highest level of office, but now we do. So is that a DEI hire? Republicans argue the only reason why she's there is because she is those check marks. It isn't because she was a great senator. It isn't because, she did a fantastic job as attorney general. Well, I will argue that in Joe Biden's mind and his thinking, they did do a pretty intensive vetting process as it came down to the final 4 candidates. And Kamala Harris was obviously one of the finalists there. They said that they did a lot of interviews and there was a lengthy process. And for that reason, if you're a Democrat, you feel like, well, she clearly was vetted. It was important for them to have that image of our candidates. We're going to select from a small group of people that are there because they are women and particularly women of color. As CNN just said, he was forced to do. But if you're on the Republican side, then you have to wonder, are you questioning, well, did she get it because she just happened, was it more because of the boxes and she's a team player, or was it based off of her actual credibility? Is she the smartest person and the most qualified person to have as our vice president? Either way, fast forward, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris were able to secure the White House and win the 2020 presidential election. Now, a separate subject we can talk about would be, was there any election fraud or anything like that? That's not going to go into that in this video. We're not going to cover those avenues, but those are all fair arguments and fair conversations to have. We could do videos about that in the future. That's not what we're discussing. She did get the presidency when it was all said and done. And therefore, Joe Biden has been the president now for almost 4 years. So going back to where this went, did she remain popular? I wanted to also cover a little bit of that. So it seems strange to me now that Kamala Harris has been chosen to be the presidential candidate for the Democrats, because of the late departure of Joe Biden. Joe Biden had shown a cognitive decline that was very clear to most of the public, but the media seemed to continue to say and deny that no, it is not right to question if he's cognitive, and then they would also try to put the limelight on Donald Trump. Well, Donald Trump is old, and is he all cognitively there? Well, that's another debate again. But one thing was clear was that it was very late when they did reveal, and it did take a debate actually on a national level where pretty much it couldn't be hidden anymore, and everybody was able to see that Joe Biden is clearly old. He is the oldest president in history, so it is a fair question. Whether you're on the right, left, or somewhere in the middle, it's a fair question to say, is the oldest president in history still of age? We've all had grandparents, we've all seen where they seem fine, and then the next year, unfortunately, there's some sort of mental decline. It was very sad when I saw that with my own grandmother. And I knew at some point as I went over there, well, it's my grandmother and I love her, but clearly she's not thinking straight. And that is a dangerous thing, I think. It's a scary thought to hear that our president of the United States is, if he's not qualified or not cognitively there to run again, and you have to, so then the follow-up question to that is, well, is he still cognitively there to run the country? That's another debate for another time. I'm not really going to go there. We're focusing more on Kamala Harris here. And we will also do videos about Donald Trump to talk about him as well. But we're starting right now with Kamala Harris. Well, I did find some interesting information that if you look at what the Democrats were saying in 2023, a lot of people are talking about how popular she is and that she's hitting the polls and that everybody's embracing her and all that. And I'm just trying to figure out, is it that the Democrats are truly just, are they embracing her, or are they embracing the fact that really Joe Biden, who at the point of his, stepping down, we'll say for now. The Republicans are accusing that perhaps he was removed against his will, but he is stepping down. He did say it in a it used to be called a tweet, but on X, he put a statement out there. Maybe it wasn't on X, but he did put a statement that he would be stepping aside, and it was all over the internet. So forgive me if I said that incorrectly. But I do want to stress that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, when they were running for office, as under the Joe Biden-Harris ticket, Joe Biden was the least popular president in American history, and Kamala Harris was the least popular vice president in American history. And that is a fact. You can look that up. In fact, I wanted to bring up what Politico was saying as of 2023. We're going to be using outlets that tend to favor and bias. If you don't know, Politico is definitely considered a Democrat biased news outlet. So therefore, it's only fair to use people from their site in order. And I will do the same when speaking about Donald Trump. We will be using more right-wing news outlets to make the points because, that's what they're saying about their candidate. So as far as Kamala Harris and what they're saying here, I don't know if I can put myself here in there. I'm getting a little better with this. I'm trying to learn. Yeah, let's try to do this. Let's go like that. Okay. Well, I don't want to block. All right, I'm gonna put the whole article here for you to see. But basically, this was again written by Politico, and you could see that they're calling for Biden to drop Harris and to pick a new running mate. So this is Politico as of September 13th of 2023. They want to make Joe Biden more electable, and they should drop Vice President Kamala Harris and pick a new running mate. So they think that Joe Biden is too old, according to recent polls, and there are 3 prominent Democrat columnists that believe that a stronger running mate will gain traction in the country and even in the Democrat Party. So this goes on. You have they're saying that several options to replace Kamala Harris would be Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, Senator Raphael Warnock, Senator Tammy Duckworth, and Representative Lauren Underwood of Illinois. So replacing Harris with another running mate is not a great option. It's just that Democrats have no good ones. It's risky to switch out the first black female vice president for someone else, but it's also risky to saddle an 81-year-old nominee with an exceptionally unpopular running mate. So, yeah. It would come with significant, this was the biggest fear. Dumping Harris would come with a significant backlash among black voters, a category of voters Biden needs in 2024, and that served him a major victory in 2020. So, especially black women. Obviously, we saw the letter that was written by the 200 black women earlier. I don't think they would be very happy to hear that their candidate that they wanted has been completely taken off of the ticket. To further emphasize, it wasn't just Politico. We have more people calling. Josh Burrow is known as a leftist columnist. He writes, I think this is more independent, but basically he was suggesting Gretchen Whitmer. But I did want to show you something that I found rather interesting. They're saying, it goes on. Kamala Harris would do little to draw support for the 2024 ticket. They were talking about, right here, for example, they talk a lot about the statistics of black voters in California, San Francisco, and that she failed to demonstrate an especially strong appeal to black voters who tended to prefer her eventual running mate Biden, even after she accused him of being a segregationist, and it goes on and it goes on. So I just wanted to show you that it wasn't just Politico; it was all over the internet. I found there were so many sources. Here's another one, which is Nate Silver. Nate Silver is going to be an interesting example, and I'll show you why here. So Democrats think Kamala Harris would lose to Trump, and polls say that they're probably right. Again, September 6th. So the message that was going out a little less than a year ago was that, they needed to replace Kamala Harris. And this goes back to, well, if she, it gives a little credibility to the Republicans arguing if she is a DEI hire, because clearly all these Democrats are saying, well, if it's on her resume, if it's on her, her credibility, it's not good. She's not popular, and therefore she could be dragging Joe Biden down. So then, unless there's a last minute health scare or scandal, Joe Biden is almost certain to be the Democratic nominee for president again. They're claiming now that it's health, right? We kind of, it seemed a little predictable that we were going to be here. But anyway, it goes on and on and on about why they should get rid of Kamala Harris. So they go Harris versus Trump as of a year ago was showing that she was losing to him in almost every poll. The average was minus 4%. YouGov, Redfield, all these are known, polls out there. Biden versus Trump was closer at that time. So obviously Joe Biden, after this article was written, became less and less popular with his age and clear cognitive decline that a lot of people were able to see. And therefore he had worse numbers than this -4. So going to Kamala Harris as a Democrat is a better option. Now, I want you to see this. This was in September of 2006. September 6th of 2023. Same author. 1 year later, July 21st, Biden and Democrats make the rational choice. So, here we go. This basically says it, where they think Kamala Harris is the right choice. And they go into why. Probably will be Harris, who already has the support of many important facts of the Democrat Party, including, importantly, Biden, whose campaign was responsible for picking the large minority of DNC delegates and so forth. I extensively covered the case for and against Harris last week. And there's a lot of interesting points that were brought up there. You can look into that. That's actually quite a good read, the case for and against her. And that was July 12th. And they go into a lot of things, the polling numbers, how Harris is polling against Trump. As of July, before, the current narrative, she was basically losing to him in almost every poll. And, the case against her is, this has nothing about her qualifications, but her electoral track record is really quite poor. She's in the upper tier of all-time primary flops. That's the one that I showed you where she only won by less than 1%. But she did do better after that. So, and it goes on. Then there's the case for her. So they say the strong polling performance of Democrats who won, this brings the ticket up because they're saying that Biden was dragging the ticket down on a lot of states. That's going to be a less effect. Her disapproval rating is only 49.5%, which is not good, but it's better than Biden's 56.8%. So there are a lot of arguments as to why. In fact, there's more arguments from Mr. Silver here as to why she would be a good candidate. So to go back a little bit, that's the current situation and where we're at. Now, I wanted to cover a little bit of the timeline of Kamala Harris's career. And let me bring myself up here. In the timeline of Kamala Harris's career, what a lot of people recently have been saying, there was, I didn't put up the video, everybody's seen it, where Donald Trump questioned, well, what is Kamala Harris? Is she the first African-American woman president, or is she the Indian-American woman president? And clearly on the Democrat side, well, they're saying, well, she's both. If her mom is Indian and her dad is Indian and Jamaican, because I believe he's Hindu and Jamaican as well, then she can represent both. And that's fine. Again, I really don't care. I don't care. I know I'm doing this video and I know we're talking about it, but I kind of want this to be the only video and put it to bed. Identity politics, this is where my bias comes in. Full disclosure, right? I'm not going to be neutral here, but I just don't think identity politics is really that important. I just want someone who's good for the job. And I think that here Joe Biden didn't do her any favors because he said, oh, he's so proud of when he comes out, he says, I'm going to put the first black Supreme Court justice, which was Ketanji Brown Jackson, and I'm going to put the first black woman vice president, which was Kamala Harris. I say if you really want to do progress with diversity, just do it. You don't need to say, hey, look at me. I'm doing this amazing thing. I'm a champion of this. They will know that you're doing it for, everybody will know by seeing it. When Kamala is the person, the public is smart enough to know. And someone will mention, there will be a news outlet. Let the news say it for you. Let them say, oh, by the way, she's the first woman of color vice president. There you go. But it doesn't look as bad. And it's really not fair to her. I think if you're Kamala Harris or you're Ketanji Brown Jackson, it's not fair to them that Joe Biden did that and announced it in that way. Because if Ketanji Brown Jackson, for example, and I'm a little off the cusp here because I didn't prep these videos, but I watched the entire hearing of her Supreme Court Justice confirmation. And she, if you recall, this was the woman who very popularly, it went all over the internet, it was viral, about what is a woman. And her answer was, I'm not a biologist. Awful answer. It's just terrible. Everybody knows a woman. It's in the dictionary. You can read it. It's an adult human female. But pretty bad answer. It's just to say, I can't answer that. You're a woman, and you're going to be on the Supreme Court Justice, where there's going to be a lot of discussions about laws, and they're going to address men and women and so forth. You should know what a woman is. Like, it's pretty obvious. But anyway, regardless, that's not what this video is about. Ketanji Brown Jackson, because she was attacked on that particular issue, she was labeled as being incompetent, and therefore she's just a DEI hire that has no understanding of the law. She's just there because Joe Biden wants to put a black woman there. And then they will also use examples from the Republican side of that there are very good conservative black judges that could have been considered. Why weren't they considered? Well, clearly, if you are the Democrat president, you're going to be looking for people who lean to your politics, just as Donald Trump did when he was the president as well. Now, because of the safety of Supreme Court justices having no term limits, and it's for life, once they are elected, they are not bound to any political party. That is designed on purpose because we want the Supreme Court justices to look at the law and separate themselves from the politics behind what people are arguing for. That is why they have the protection of no term limits. Well, Ketanji Brown Jackson, I watched the hearings, and you can argue professionally that she has a concerning softer approach to pedophilia criminals. But in her defense, as she stated during the confirmation, that seemed to be the norm on some of those punishments that she did. That can go back and forth. Again, maybe a different video for a different time if we want to go there. But what I did hear during that whole thing, to be fair to Ketanji, is that she does have a pretty good understanding of the law and legal jargon and legal terms. And she did seem, if you put politics aside and you're just saying, is she smart enough to be a Supreme Court justice? Yes, I think the clear answer was yes. You may not like her. She may not be your choice, but that doesn't mean that she wasn't qualified. But when Joe Biden comes out and just says, I'm going to choose the first black Supreme Court justice, then the standard that's being placed there, and Ketanji has to wonder, did I get this job because I'm qualified, or did I get it because I'm a black woman? And I don't think that's fair to Ketanji Brown Jackson. I don't think that that's what is the correct approach. It's not very presidential or a leadership action to do by setting up your appointee with this unfair conversation. Had he just appointed Ketanji Brown Jackson, had he just done it without announcing to the world, by the way, look for it, I'm gonna get the first black woman to be on the Supreme Court justice. Yes, you know, this is a progress, I guess you could say, in racial terms, I suppose. I don't think that it's good to talk along, you know, hey, this is the first achievement of an Asian American in politics. Okay. If we really want to get past the idea of racism and past all this, then we kind of have to stop talking about it in context of racism. There's a great quote out there, Morgan Freeman. You can go look at the video. He says, if you want racism to go away, stop talking about it. I'm kind of paraphrasing there. But I do agree with that notion, is that, well, if I just look at Ketanji Brown Jackson as a Supreme Court justice, well, then I can just look at her and say, well, based off of, is she qualified or not? If I look at Kamala Harris as she is the candidate, well, then you treat her fairly as you would any candidate. Her policies need to be questioned. They need to, you know, where do you stand on this? Where do you stand on that? And questioning her has nothing to do with race, because if you're approaching her as, well, she is the presidential candidate, then she's fair grounds to be asked all the same questions that you would ask a Joe Biden or a Donald Trump or a Barack Obama or a Bill Clinton or anybody who has been the president of the United States. She's now under those terms. You can ask her, hey, where do you stand on immigration? Where do you stand on those things? And we're going to do a video about that, is the argument over whether she was the border czar? No, I'm going to touch about that here a little bit, and then we'll probably go more into depth of that in the future. Something that makes me wonder is to support Kamala Harris's argument right now, Donald Trump, I think I brought this up a little earlier in the video. Donald Trump was heard questioning when he was talking to it was the National, I want to say, Assembly of Black Journalists. Could be a little wrong on that. It was like NABJ. And he went up there and he said, well, which one is it? Is she Indian? Is she black? He says before she was Indian, now she's black. She seems to roll with whichever one is more convenient for her. Well, this isn't something that Kamala has just started doing, to be fair to her. She has, dating back to when she was in law school. I found this timeline of Kamala Harris, written by Ignite. So I believe this is more of a left-leaning. This was written in 2020. And it explains where she comes from, how she attended Howard University, which is a historically black university in Washington, D.C. And also that she was the president of its chapter of the Black Law Students Association. This goes into more details on what that means and what it could have stood for. But I did want to bring this up as, she has identified as both, to be fair to her. So I think Donald Trump saying it is just trying to say more about, again, it doesn't seem to me, I could be wrong, and you could disagree with me on this. It doesn't seem to me coming from any type of a racial bias or anything. He's trying to make a point of, is she basically appeasing to the crowd that's in front of her? And that's to say, if she's in front of a black voter base, she wants them to feel like she's one of them. And she will say, I am your first black president, black woman president, excuse me, because of course we had Barack Obama. And before, when she was in California, there's an AP article, which, I don't know if I don't think I linked that one, but it did claim first Indian American senator of California. So again, she's been celebrated in all these ways. She's been on shows where they celebrated her Indian background, and she's been on shows where they celebrate her black background. I really wish that we didn't have to have these types of conversations, because I think it takes away from, policy discussions. Instead, we're here wasting time on, is she Indian or is she black? So I want to say that out loud in the video, because that's how I feel about all this. And you may feel different, but I'm just letting you know. So the left, they do have a point of, Kamala has always been this way. Clearly, if she was the president of what was it? It was the Black, it was right here. The chapter of the Black Law Students Association. That was in college. That was before she was running for political office. So since then, now you can go into her whole family tree and where's her father from and all this and that. I just don't care. I really don't. But that's to give you an idea of why there's been a lot of disagreement on, is she a DEI hire and so forth. And yeah, so what I'm more concerned about is there's been a concentrated focus on racism in this country, in our media, for quite some time now. And it looks like there was an uptrend in this starting in 2011 or so. This is a group called Tablet, and they wanted to talk about how the media led to this great racial awakening. And they did a little bit of research to discuss how many times the word racism was being mentioned in our leading newspapers. So the New York Times is probably the most read newspaper in the country, Washington Post, and so forth. And it is no secret that the New York Times, it's really sad, I think, that we no longer really have a lot of newspapers, and this goes for the New York Post as well, where they have their clear bias. And that's upsetting to me, because journalism is supposed to be objective. I mean, I did take Journalism 101. I didn't get a journalism degree or anything. But in Journalism 101, it was like the first lessons were, you have to be objective. You have to give. And I took that lesson to heart. That's why we created the show. That's why we're here at the fork in the road, because I'm being told, oh, Kamala Harris is only the vice president because she's black. She's only, and then is she even black or Indian according to Republicans? And then I got the Democrats over here telling me, questioning these things are racist questions and so forth. I'm just like, well, what about the policies, right? What is it that Kamala Harris, what are her solutions? You know, if the economy seems to be, and you know, again, these are, if the minute I say the economy, I can go find people that are telling you the economy is hitting on all cylinders and that Biden and Kamala have been doing a great job. And then I've got everyone on the right and a lot of people in the middle who are saying, no, a lot of the policies that they have put us in this situation, have increased inflation and so forth. And we can go over that in future videos. We're going to stay more on this subject. So I wanted to talk a little bit about why is it that racism all of a sudden became a big conversational piece. And someone who tried to do that was this study that was a tablet magazine here for news and politics. They talked about how the media led to this great racial awakening. And they do discuss how, let me take myself out of the equation here. They do discuss that the New York Times, the Washington Post, the LA Times started using the words racist and racism significantly more in 2011. So it says here clearly that it was accounted for this low percentage, which is 0.02 of a percent of all the words that was used in those respectively. And then this is over a half decade before the arrival of Donald Trump. By 2019, racist and racism jumped to only 0.02%. So that is an increase of over 700% and under 1,000%. This is in print journalism. This is not in their website. So this doesn't even include those statistics, but it makes you wonder where and why. And I can actually do a video on this because I have some theories on why this happened, but we can look at why was it at that time that they wanted the public to have racism on its mind, you know? So it was interesting to see, do you know anyone who you would consider a racist or not? The percentage of that, the white Democrat percentage, I believe this was in 2006. This is an interesting question. So do you know anyone who you would consider a racist or not? You can see it for yourself. Apparently white Democrats in 2006, it was 45%. And at that time, white Republicans, it was 40%. In 2015, and again, you're reading New York Post, you're reading New York Times and so forth, that number jumped up a significant amount in the white Democrat population to 63.9%. Black Democrats were at 52.7 in 2006, and that number has actually gone down, where black Democrats are now at 47.2%, according to this poll here, saying if they know anyone, they would be considered racist or not. So that actually went down. The same thing went for Hispanic Democrats, who were at 41% and then 33%. They didn't put the black and Hispanic Republicans, but I guess that just wasn't relevant here. This is a CNN poll that was done. So that was, you know, CNN telling you. That's not Fox News or anything like that. For any Democrats that are saying, well, where did you get these numbers? Those are CNN. And CNN definitely, I would say, leans to the left if you want to get your news from them. They definitely don't like Donald Trump, which has been very clear. So anyway, just something to consider. This article, to its own credit, does state that this doesn't necessarily prove it, at least scientifically saying it's not enough data, but this is quite an interesting correlation that should be looked at. So I wanted to go back and I looked here and I found an article that was written and it was published in Brookings. I don't think it's showing you, but it is Brookings here, as you can see. And I don't know who Abigail Thernstrom was or Stephen Thernstrom was, but this was an interesting article that I found that was written in 1998, because I wanted to see what is it that was being said. And I thought there were some interesting statistics here for you to look at, right? 60 and 22, for example. So 60% of employed black women worked as domestic servants. Today, that number is down to 2.2%. 44 and 1, there was 44% of whites in 1958 that said that they would move if a black family became their next door neighbor. Today, that figure is 1%. So I want you to, I think that's a very important statistic here. In 1958, 44% of white families said that they would move if they had a black neighbor. Today, that's 1%. And, you know, and that was in 1998. For all we know, it's less than 1% now. And, you know, and it goes on. There's some other interesting facts. It's not to say that racism were out of the hole. In fact, by the end of the article, they're saying that the optimism of racism is not good. It talks about how black progress over the last half century has been impressive. Conventional wisdom to the contrary notwithstanding, and yet the nation has many miles to go on the road to true racial equality. I wish I could say that racism and prejudice were only distant memories, but as I look around, I see that even educated whites and African Americans have lost hope in equality. So that was what Thurgood Marshall said in 1992. So it's not to say that, you know, we're out of the woods or anything, right? But, you know, that's what they're saying here. So, whew. We go into more timelines here for Kamala Harris, and there's some really interesting articles talking about how when she was at Hastings and where she was and her political stances. I encourage you to go go look at more articles that have been written. This is just one I'm going to recommend, especially, you know, if you're on the left. Let's say this was written by Politico in 2021. So what I like is sometimes I feel going back and reading articles that were written before the current narrative could give you a little bit more perspective on, you know, what was said before and what's being said now. You know, I think I've covered this subject, so I'm going to move on. But basically, is she a DEI hire? That's for you to decide. I've given you a lot of facts here to consider, a lot of information. You can understand why the Republicans say what they do. And really, that's all Joe Biden's fault. I don't think you can blame anyone else. Joe Biden, by coming out and saying, I'm going to hire a woman, and then it was, I'm going to hire a woman of color. Well, did you hire her because of that, or did you hire her because of her credibility? Clearly, Kamala Harris has a history as an attorney general, as a senator. I believe it was 2-term of a senator. In her primary, she did not do well. She ran for president against Joe Biden. Everyone remembers, and you can look it up. After Tulsi Gabbard did debated her pretty strongly and really brought up her record as a prosecutor and what she did, Kamala's numbers dropped dramatically. She became very unpopular after Tulsi Gabbard's comments. Basically, Tulsi Gabbard ended her presidential run, and Kamala dropped out before the Iowa caucus. So there are no voting numbers there. We really don't have voting numbers on Kamala Harris on a national level at any level, which is a little bit concerning, I believe, because she is the presidential candidate, but unfortunately there hasn't been an official primary. And a primary wasn't allowed to happen. Robert F. Kennedy is running as an independent, but before he was running as an independent, he was running as a Democrat, and he wanted to have a primary, and he did meet certain thresholds that legally meant it should have happened, but the Democrat Party did shut that down. They said that they're sticking with the incumbent, which led to Robert F. Kennedy going as an independent candidate. The democratic process hasn't really been used here, and that's a shame. I think it would be better for her credibility, and it would be a stronger foundation for her to run on if it was acknowledged that she was the choice of the Democrats. And that's not the case here. To be fair to some of the Democrats out there who feel that way, well, Bernie Sanders seemed like he was more popular than Hillary Clinton. But the Democratic National Committee stepped in and made sure that Hillary Clinton got those delegates and that she was the candidate when she ran against Donald Trump. Bernie Sanders might have had a better chance against Donald Trump because he had a lot of momentum. Don't get me wrong, Bernie Sanders and I don't share the same political view by any means, but in terms of what is fair, it did seem to me that maybe Bernie Sanders should have been given the nod for the Democrat Party, and there may have been a little bit of in-party corruption. The same thing happened, if I'm being fair, in the Republican side when it was Mitt Romney over Ron Paul. Ron Paul was clearly the more popular candidate with the public and the voters, but they kept, the media kept saying Mitt Romney, Mitt Romney. Why? What did I say here in Fork in the Road in the intro channel? The intro video for this channel was that the powers that be, they protect the status quo. Bernie Sanders and Ron Paul are not the status quo. You have Bernie Sanders, who is an admitted Democratic socialist, and you have Ron Paul, who's basically a libertarian, not so much a Republican, and he's been calling out both parties for a long time. That became very popular when Ron Paul, that would have been the 2008 election. And that also goes into a little theory of mine of, did they start talking about racism because Ron Paul became popular? I say that because when Ron Paul became popular, more people than ever since I've been studying politics was they were talking about being against both parties, that Democrats and Republicans have basically put us in this mess. It was after the Iraq wars, the Afghanistan war was going on and all that. And a lot of blame was being put on both sides, that there's basically a war party, a uniparty that exists that allows for wars to continue. And Ron Paul was calling out all this. He was saying that we shouldn't be policing the world and these types of things. And then all of a sudden, the newspapers started getting the green light. We want you to talk about racism more. And that led to people talking about racism more. So could it have been because of Ron Paul? There are people who think that out there, that, the Tea Party movement, and a lot of people were talking about, we need a third party. We need to get away from the two-party system that we currently have in the United States. And the way it's always been in my lifetime, I'm 42 years old. And my entire life, it's been Democrat, Republican. The only time I remember a debate happening with a third party was Ross Perot. It seemed that Robert F. Kennedy has actually more support than Ross Perot did then. And we don't see the news media today pushing for a fair debate of the three candidates. Even though Robert F. Kennedy literally did go get all the votes he was supposed to get to make that happen, they keep pushing that line further away. Oh, well, now the rules have changed. And, I'm just all for fairness, man. I may not agree with Robert F. Kennedy. I don't agree with Donald Trump on everything he says. I don't agree with Kamala Harris. But Robert F. Kennedy should have been allowed to debate. He just should have. To say that we don't have, a third, it's dangerous to put him up there. We have this bad trend of it's dangerous to allow this person to speak. Free speech is free speech, man. And you can say, well, unless I hear them say, hey, go hurt these people, go attack these people. I'm not hearing that from any of the candidates. I don't hear that from Kamala Harris or Robert F. Kennedy or Donald Trump. There are no specific orders that are being said, hey, go do this violent action and so forth. But anyway, one more quick thing I want to talk to before we move on from this video. And the way we end this video is Kamala Harris. So we were talking about how, is she a DEI candidate? If you're a Democrat, she's not. She has the credibility to be where she is, and to suggest that she is a DEI candidate is racist. And there's not every Democrat that says that, so maybe that's not fair either. But they are saying that she has the credibility, so really it's not a fair assessment. Not necessarily calling everybody who's questioning a racist. Some people definitely are, though. On the Republican side, there are some people who are like, hey, man, they don't care. I've heard some Republicans that are like, why are we even talking about this? And then I've heard some Republicans that really want to get into the nitty gritty of, well, they look at the family tree and they want to see, well, her dad, there's a Judge Joe Brown video that's out there that you could look up where he has some very bold statements to say. Some of the most bold I've heard. He does claim that he does know Kamala's dad personally. And they talk birth certificate and stuff like that. He's definitely not a fan of Kamala Harris. So full disclosure, if you go watch the Judge Joe Brown video, that guy does not like Kamala Harris. So you have that bias clear as day from the minute that interview starts. I don't know about those claims. I really don't care to investigate those claims. It's just, again, not that important to me. All right. But something that is a little bit more important is the question of, is Kamala Harris the border czar? Now, I didn't hear Joe Biden say border czar. Maybe that video exists out there. So, hey, Republicans, this definitely favors you. If you know the video where he says and calls her border czar, I would love to get a link to that. I was looking for it and I couldn't find it. But I did find this, which was clear as day. And I wanted to share this video with you. So let me go ahead and put this video. And I'll let you hear what Joe Biden said for herself about her being on the border. This video was from a local news station, and the date was 3 years ago. So this is not in the current news line, and I think it's quite telling of where Kamala Harris should have been in terms of the border.
I said when we became a team and got elected that the vice president was going to be the last person in the room. She didn't realize that means she gets every assignment. But the vice president and I and all of us here have been working very hard to pass the legislation that is going to beat this virus, as well as get people back to work and change their prospects. And so she's traveling all over the country working that. In addition to that, there's about 5 other major things she's handling, but I've asked her, the VP, today, because she's the most qualified person to do it, to lead our efforts with Mexico and the Northern Triangle and the countries that help us. We're going to need help in stemming the movement of so many folks stemming the migration to our southern border. So this new surge we're dealing with now started with the last administration, but it's our responsibility to deal with it humanely and to stop what's happening. And so this increase has been consequential, but the vice presidents agreed, among the multiple other things that happened in the meeting, and I appreciate it, agreed to lead our diplomatic effort and work with those nations to accept the returnees and enhance migration enforcement at their borders. We're already talking with Mexico about that. She's already done that. We're going to be dealing with a full team now that we have to be able to deal with the problem here at home, but also to deal with it now in terms of in country. And I can think of nobody who's better qualified to do this than this is a woman who ran the second largest Attorney General's office in America after the United States Attorney General in the state of California, and has done a great deal of upholding human rights, but also fighting organized crime in the process. So it's not her full responsibility and job, but she's leading the effort, because I think the best thing to do is to put someone who, when he or she speaks, they don't have to wonder about, is that where the president is? When she speaks for me, doesn't have to check with me, she knows what she's doing, and I hope we can move this along. So, Madam Vice President, thank you. I gave you a tough job, and you're smiling, but there's no one better capable of trying to organize this.
Well, thank you, Mr. President, and for having the confidence in me. And there's no question that this is a challenging situation. As the President has said, there are many factors that lead President to leave these countries. And while we are clear that people should not come to the border now, we also understand that we will enforce the law, and that we also, because we can chew gum and walk at the same time, must address the root causes that cause people to make the trek, as the President has described, to come here. And I look forward to engaging in diplomacy with government, with private sector, with civil society, and the leaders of each in El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras to strengthen democracy and the rule of law and ensure shared prosperity in the region. We will collaborate with Mexico and other countries throughout the Western Hemisphere. And as part of this effort, we expect that we will have collaborative relationships to accomplish the goals the President has and that we share. I also look forward to working with members of the Congress who I think share our perspective on the need to address root causes for the migration that we've been seeing. And needless to say, the work will not be easy, but it is important work. It is work that we demand and the people of our countries, I believe, need to help stem the tide that we have seen.
All right, so that was I let it play in its entirety. I showed myself because I don't know if I'm violating copyright issues. I've seen where people put themselves on the little bit of the screen here, so I popped myself up a couple times because this is news. This is a coverage of it, and I don't want copyright problems. So I could be wrong, but again, hey, kind of new to the channel's new, so we're gonna be learning things, and we do hope to polish up a lot of the show moving forward. But right now, we don't have time to make some of those polishes. I have to keep going, so we wanted to bring out some content, and I think that's an important video to hear. Something that she said that a lot of people have argued over. She wanted to get to the root cause of the migrations, of why this was happening, and something that Joe Biden said was that the surge happened from the previous administration, and I think I actually have evidence to the contrary here, so I want to share that with you. But is she the border czar? So clearly what Joe Biden was saying, call it border czar, don't call it border czar. He said, I'm appointing Kamala Harris to be in charge of the migration crisis so that we can solve this. And we look today, but the migration crisis has not been solved. And it just hasn't. If it was her job to do it, Clearly, that was not done well. Now, there's a lot of arguments that go there. I will do a video on immigration. This is not that video. I'm just touching on it a little bit. I did because a lot of, again, that's another hot topic. Was she the border czar? And it is harder to find information on that online. There's accusations that the tech giants are retconning or changing the past, trying to make it harder to find these videos. It wasn't the easiest video to find. You have to really look for it. Obviously now if you see where it was, you know what its name, you could search it, but it wasn't like I could just type Kamala Harris border czar and find old videos on that. What I ended up finding was a lot of videos talking about more of the response of the Republicans or trying to accuse them of, again, the word racist just gets thrown around these days. And, questioning, we have to be able to question Kamala Harris's record. We have to be able to question Donald Trump's record. But this video is primarily about Kamala Harris. But in terms of neutrality, I'm not saying that it's just one side. We have to question Robert F. Kennedy's record as well. So all these records have to be in the public spotlight, or else how can you, the voter, really know what you're voting for, right? You have to be able to have these educated. We need information. We live in the information age. I actually think that history books are going to reflect this time as the information war era. That is the biggest war that seems to be going on, in my opinion. There are hot wars around the world. Currently, as this video is being made and I'm recording this, there is a lot of escalations between Iran and Israel. You know about the Ukraine-Russia war, that's an ongoing war. There are wars around the world, but I do think the information war is the craziest, hottest thing that is just existing in our world today. Whether it's on social media, whether it's in mainstream media, whether it's in independent media, the fact that we have all these terms is just enough proof in itself. No one knows where to get information anymore. Everyone isn't sure, is what I'm being told the truth? I'm sure people are questioning that are seeing this right now. Oh, this guy's biased. Oh, this guy thinks that. This guy thinks this. And I do think what I think. But I am all about trying to find, can we at least just get to what's true and what's fair? And that is my goal at the end of the day. So whether you agree with my personal politics really doesn't matter. And if you don't agree with me, tell me why. I'll look and see what you're saying. And if there's a fact there that I see, hey, you know what? That's definitely proving something I said as wrong. I'll be happy to share it in future videos. This channel isn't just for me. I'm just trying to steer the ship. This is the fork in the road. And, it's not just about what I think. I could do an opinion show, but that's not my goal. I could go on there. I could easily do an opinion show of my values, of what I think and so forth. There's a lot of those out there, but I'm not finding many people who are just trying to find the objectionable truth. I have found online there are some broadcasts that do that. If you're left leaning, I would say you might want to go look at a journalist like Glenn Greenwald, Jimmy Dore. Jimmy Dore it's kind of harder to find these guys now, but those guys, their whole goal was to tell the truth. Now they're comedians. Like Jimmy Dore's a comedian. And that's where we are. It's really a weird time that we live in. I grew up in the time of Peter Jennings and Brokaw and these journalists that were household names and Barbara Walters, 2020 and stuff like that. And we had people that we thought were giving us just the objectionable news and, hey, we're going to make a decision. And that seems to have gone away. Now we live in the eras of Sean Hannity and Joy Reid. And I'm not comparing the two. I don't think that they're the exact same, but clearly Sean Hannity is Republican and right-leaning and Joy Reid is left-leaning and Democrat. You have people that try to come off as more centrist in the media, but really, it's nasty. What we've seen in the news media these days. We are not seeing the same type of honorable journalism that was out there, and especially in mainstream media. I encourage most people, and it's hard because if you don't know where to look to find clear sources online, I'm gonna have to do a little bit of due diligence to find out what is. There are some Democrat podcasters out there that have normalcy. You can look up, like the Bill Maher's of the world. Bill Maher's not really a journalist, again, a comedian. Russell Brand he started off being very neutral. I would agree that he has gone a little bit more right wing lately. But his goal, he will deny that he's right wing, and his goal lately has been to try to give the objectionable truth. He calls them Awakening Wonders. He has a very popular show as well. If you haven't looked at that, you could look at that. That might be a source of information that you find. And he also is on Rumble, which, fork in the road. We're going to be on Rumble mostly as our home. But YouTube is obviously whatever we're allowed to say there. I'm a little concerned with YouTube. They do have a history of censorship for people who tried to tell the truth. We saw this during COVID. There were people who were giving factual information and they were said to be giving misinformation. And that's it's just dangerous. So I want, Rumble's going to be, if you're not on Rumble, it's a free app. You can download it if you're seeing this on YouTube or on another source or media. Go to Rumble. Rumble's free. You can find Rumble is open to everyone. There's definitely more right-wing coverage on Rumble at the moment, but that's just because I think left-wing people are being told like, oh, that's all right-wing. It's not. It's just like YouTube, but with less rules. So if you want to be if you are a Democrat influencer, I would encourage you to go to Rumble as well. Cover your tracks. Because what if in the future there's a strong right-wing presence that becomes, a little, trying to do the censorship thing where they're saying we're going to censor these Democrats and you feel like your voice is being censored. Go to Rumble. They will not censor you. This is what they take pride in. I think they will lose a lot of followers if they start to do that. So as long as you're in their terms of service and you're not participating in illegal activity, you can talk there. So I wanted to share this from the Center of Immigration Studies. I couldn't get in. I wanted to use Statista because I did see that this does have a link to some Fox News stuff. I'm not sure if the Center for Immigration Studies is right wing. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But this seems to be pretty factual here. They talk about foreign-born population and how it grew 5.1 million in the last 2 years. But what I did see was this chart where you can see. This is foreign-born population compared to the same 2 month years earlier. All right, this is showing, I can't really zoom in here, but you can see, they show you Trump's term. This is when COVID hit, right? This line right there. Okay, this is COVID. COVID starts in March 2020. Immigration, clearly the borders were closed, as you can see. So at the end of Trump's term, the border was basically closed. And in the beginning of Biden's term, the border was basically closed. All right, that's why you see this historic, something happened here in Obama's first term. I got to look more into that. It's not coming to my head right now why. But basically, it just shows that, and there's more details here. Something that you can see clearly on these charts are when Biden took over, the numbers just went way up. There's no denying this. This is if the present trend continues where we are headed, that we will. According to this, it assumes that growth under Biden would continue to here. The number in share will set new records year after year if the present trend continues at this growth rate. I don't know if that means that we will be at 82%. See, it says foreign-born share of U.S. population. Either way, you can see I will do an immigration video. This is just kind of an intro to some of these conversations because something that a lot of people are talking about is Kamala Harris, is the current border crisis her fault? And that's a fair question right now. As you can see, she was appointed to be in charge of it. She did go down to Guatemala or something. I find it odd that if you're in charge of the border that you didn't visit the border. I think that's particularly not the way to go about it. It's not very leadership-like. If you're in charge of something, you should go there. You should talk to the people on the ground there. You should talk to the immigrants that are coming in and ask them, why did you come here? Because she said she wanted to get to the root cause of why immigrants are coming here. Now, I'll tell you this, full disclosure. I am how do I say this? I am Nicaraguan American. I was born in the United States. I'm an American citizen. My family is Nicaraguan. I do have a lot of insider information of immigration because of that. I know a lot about, Nicaraguan politics. I can get into that in a future video. There's a lot of people that are being flown over here by Daniel Ortega and the Nicaraguan regime. They are flying a lot of people over here from all over the world, not just Nicaraguans. But I know for a fact that criminals have been sent here on a plane. People who have a history of crime in Nicaragua have actually murdered people and were put on airplanes here mixed in with the political prisoners. Actually, I don't know why I just did that quote, but mixed in with actual political prisoners and people who were being oppressed, who are asylum seekers. So with the asylum seekers, other governments are also taking advantage of this, and they're mixing in bad people from their country. And Donald Trump, not really a great speaker, and I can't give him the award of being a fantastic speaker. Sometimes he's on fire, and sometimes he has some good speeches, don't get me wrong. But I think some of the points that he was trying to make were that they are sending, some of these governments are sending some of these bad, dangerous people into our country, and we're not doing, it doesn't seem, at least from what I can tell, there's not a very good, clear vetting process. I know because I know that there are currently murderers from Nicaragua in our country right now as we speak. Again, I can go into more detail on that in a future video, but that is a fact that I know. And clearly from the immigration data that we're seeing, there's no denial that the estimates are anywhere between 11 to 20 million people in the last 4 years. And just to end the topic of immigration for this video, again, I will do a full immigration video in the near future. We will really cover this subject at detail. And there are layers, this is an onion here, there are layers of problems in the immigration detail, which is why I'm running out of time for today. But there are layers to this, which include, you already had about 11 million people, who were in the country undocumented before Joe Biden took office. Now, in the last few years, and that took several presidencies to accumulate to. That was like Bush, Obama, and Trump combined had led to 8 to 11 million. Now, with just Joe Biden, we have added another 11 million or so. I'll just go with the lowball number, 10 or 11 million people who have entered our country. And there are more known gotaways, and there are more people who are actually on our terrorist watch list that have been released into our country. These are facts. I will back these up in future videos, but I'm just bringing it up right now off the top of my head. It's a little shocking to me that we are allowing, people who are on the terrorist watch list in the country. They literally allowed them in. So that was actually a recent news that I found, and I will share that with you. Again, my goal is anything I say I will back up, and maybe not just in this video, but look in the future videos. We will cover immigration. You will be able to look here at Fork in the Road. Immigration will be like the title of that video for you. But it's a multi-layered problem, and what I mean by that is, first there's the illegal immigrants that just got here. Then there's the undocumented immigrants that have been here. Okay, we have people that have been here for a long time that have, and I know this even from some personal anecdotal stories. They've been here, maybe they entered the country illegally, but they wanted to change their status, so they started paying taxes, they started paying fees. USCIS is a disaster of a government program and constantly gets worse, and it compounds this problem because as more people are coming in, the people that they're trying to process from the original 8 to 10 million people, they keep getting pushed further back in the line. And now we have another 11 million people to process, and it's delaying everything for everybody. I don't know what the solution is entirely. I'm gonna have to look more into that to present to you what are possible solutions being presented by both sides. What I do know is that there's a major problem with the system, and it's not getting any better. There are people, because then I'll hear Republicans that just say, oh, just send all those illegals back to their country. It's not that simple. And then I hear Democrats that are saying, we should give amnesty to all the people that are here. It's not that simple. We have a lot of people that have entered our country unvetted. That poses a danger here that we have to be careful. Oh, okay. That poses a danger here of, who is here. We really don't know. And right now the world, we're seeing it around the world. There's dangerous riots and protests that are going on around the world by immigrant groups or by the response to those immigrant groups. What you can't deny is that those fights are happening. Currently, it's in England. There seems to be real big turmoil, whether in the English, again, another video, another time. But my point is this. There are so many people that are being affected by the current immigration policies That is undeniable. And that's the people that are trying to get in, and they've been paying thousands of dollars in taxes and fees to USCIS, and they're not even able to get a green card. They have children here that are grown-ups. I've seen this. There are people that, they enter this country, they have a child that was born here. Their child is, I've seen up to 20 years old and 19, 20 years old, and they still haven't been able to get a green card. And that doesn't seem right. If they're just trying to be hiding away from the system, I get that's not good. Or if they're doing illegal activity, I get it. Any criminal that doesn't have documentation should just be exported. I don't understand how that's even a topic for discussion. If you break the law here while being here and breaking the law to get in, we have to set the limits here, right? But there are people who are good people who are seeking a better life. And the United States has always been the land of immigrants. And that has to be embraced. But if it's not controlled, then we risk having a country. If we don't control the door, you don't, into your own personal homes, you don't just open the door and say, hey, everybody, come on in, because you're going to get people that, you're going to get some people that are good people that come in. Maybe you get some musicians that come in and you get some free music in your house because you're taking care of them. But what if you also get someone who's mentally unstable and possibly violent, and you have children? You're not just going to let those people come into your house. I know, I have 2 children. I would not allow that to happen. So the same thing is with our border. We have to have control of the border. And I think that that's just one of the biggest, if not the biggest failure of the Biden administration. And again, that is my assessment. If you feel different, please feel free to share why you feel different. But I would think just to be fair to the people who want to defend that, you're on weak grounds there. The numbers speak for themselves. We have more people in our country coming in at a crazy pace. Now, why is that? Kamala Harris will tell you it's because of things. She'll go as far as to say it's because of climate change. I don't know if I can agree with that. People do come to our country. I think people come to America to look for a better life. It's really quite simple. It's really nothing other than that. People know this is the land of the free. You can start your own businesses here. There's money here. There's the opportunity here. Why not? My family legally immigrated to this country because it was a better opportunity. They wanted to get away from the socialism that was taking over Nicaragua under a Sandinista regime. They came to the United States to escape all that, to give me a better life, a better future. So I love the United States. I love this country, and I'm grateful for every opportunity that it did here. Now, when my dad got here, was he just welcomed with open arms? No, he was not. My father's a doctor, and he was given he had a medical degree from Nicaragua that was not honored and respected in the United States. So he had to go do medical school a second time in the United States. It's hard work. It's not like you're just allowed in and hey, it's a golden ticket. But if there's no control of the border, then there's just no order. When my parents came in, it was under a controlled legal system. You know what I mean? Like, they had to. I still remember the immigration ceremony when my parents were allowed to come in, and they were given their green cards and eventually their citizenship. And now my parents are citizens. And of course, because I was born in this country and all that, I was automatically a citizen as well. So again, I love the United States of America, and all I want to do is see one that's safe for my children in the future. So we need to talk about immigration. This was about DEI. I'm getting way into immigration at this point. Maybe I'll edit a little bit of that out, but not much, because again, I'm not trying to edit things here. This is about open discussions, and this is how they work. So this is Fork in the Road. I'm going to kind of just end it with that. And again, we're trying to start this movement. Be a part of it. Join us. Be a part of what we're doing here at Fork in the Road. We want this to be a community where you can talk about it if you agree with me. Bring your points. Is Kamala Harris a DEI candidate? Is it fair what Joe Biden did by saying it instead of just doing it? And I think that's my assessment of it. I don't think she is a DEI hire entirely. I just think it started that way. And you know what? They did do a vetting process. So for me, that kind of checks off enough check marks to say, whatever. I don't really care if she's a DEI candidate. She is the candidate. So spending more time than I just did, talking about, is she a DEI candidate? Is she black? Is she Indian? What is she? None of that matters. What really matters is, and I'm not clear because I've been to Kamala Harris's website. Let me see if it's been updated before I end this video. We'll look Kamala Harris website. Okay, Kamala Harris. I'm gonna go to Kamala Harris for president here. Okay, here for full transparency, and you can see. Here, I'm gonna go back. This is the link, Kamala Harris website. I just Googled it. Here's Kamala Harris for president. First thing they asked me for is my donation. I'm gonna close that. Meet Kamala, meet Tim Walz, take action in events in store. I wanna meet Kamala Harris. All right. It's devoted to her career. Okay. And that's it. I don't see links that show me her stances. I would love to know, what do you stand for, right? There's events if you want to do that. Let's see. And then there's Meet Tim Walz. So yeah, I'm a little disheartened to see that I can't see what her stances are. And I'm not, hey, I mean, she hasn't been the president. She's been the vice president. And she hasn't quite shown, I don't know where she stands on a lot of things. I would love to know. What are your solutions? Hey Democrats, please, Democrats that are watching this, feel free to share links. If you say, hey, Kamala Harris took an obvious stance on, what is her current stance? I should say. I've seen where she defends things and she goes, yes, the Joe Biden, obviously what Joe Biden stood for is going to be her stance on most things, but it should be kind of displayed in her website. This is how we feel about taxes. This is our solution to taxes moving forward, how we're going to spur the economy. That's all I care about, is what are your policies? How are we going to control the border? If both sides have admitted, if both sides have admitted that the border has problems, we need to fix it. So let's look at it. So again, is Kamala Harris a DEI hire? You make your decision on that. I've given you a lot of information. I gave you some information from the left, information from the right, and my own personal bias. Again, I don't think she's technically DEI hire, but Joe Biden kind of made it where she was, but unfairly, I would say, because she was an attorney general. It wasn't like he just went and selected some random woman of color and said, hey, you're the person. I mean, there was a vetting process that the Democrats used and put him through. So this topic to me is not important. Let's move on. And that will be the last time we talk about DEI hiring with Kamala Harris or Ketanji Brown Jackson. I just think it's a disservice. If you're going to do something in the spirit of diversity, my suggestion to you is just do it. Don't do it and say, hey, look at me, because then you didn't do it for the right reasons. You did it for your own personal, you wanted to look good. Just do it. Just do it. And everyone will notice, like, hey, look, there's a diverse looking group of people there. You will just notice. It's like, it doesn't take much to do that. But we can't hire people at the highest levels of office. And we cannot have a president of the United States. What shouldn't be the most celebrated aspect of their presidency is the color of their skin. And it was Martin Luther King who, on his dream speech, he said he wanted to envision, and I'm going to paraphrase it, but for the future for his children, he wanted his children to be judged not by the color of their skin. He wanted them to be judged by the content of their character. And that's a message that I've heard since I was little, and I fully agree with. Judge these people based off of the content of their character. Are they serious people that want to bring this country forward and make America strong? Or do they just want to be judged by the color of their skin? I think if you're Kamala Harris, you don't want this. You don't want this discussion. And if you're on the Republican side, you're wasting your time if you're having this discussion. So let's start talking about policies. Let's push for debates, and let's get some substance so that we're clear on where Donald Trump stands and we're clear on where Kamala Harris stands. And hey, I think they should include Robert F. Kennedy in these conversations. Where does he stand? If he's crazy, let the public decide, because they all tell you this man is dangerous and this and that. They say Donald Trump is dangerous, but you know what? He was president for 4 years as well, and we were all still here after that presidency. And Joe Biden was here for 4 years, and he was considered dangerous by the Republicans, and we're all still here. So, let's get to the facts. This is a huge country with a diverse group of people. We are 330 million people, and let's come together and start talking about things. So here's once again signing off, Paul Pastor, Fork in the Road. When life presents to you two paths, forge ahead and create your own. Thank you.